Hi, and welcome to my channel. If we haven't met yet, my name is Herman Fernandez. I'm a husband, father, audio engineer, musician, and a full-time Texas realtor. But what you see now didn't just happen overnight. This journey was full of unexpected twists, tough decisions, and a lot of faith. In this video, I just want to take a few minutes to share where I come from, what shaped me, and why real estate isn't just a career for me, right? It's a calling. And looking back at that journey, I just recall HGTV, funny enough, that kind of sparked interest in real estate. I just didn't know to what extent at the time. So the very first time real estate caught my attention was maybe like in 2015, looking at all the shows, the ones flipping houses, designing dream spaces, the ones that would they'd have the broken down homes and then they turn them into this beautiful, amazing thing. And I just think that creativity spoke to me. As someone who's always been hands-on with music and sound, I appreciated the idea of taking something and transforming it. And you can ask my wife. I don't let go of things really, easily at all. If something's broken, I will fix it myself before ever calling, not a plumber, I shouldn't say, but anything around the house, right? So I just saw real estate not just as a numbers and contracts type of thing, right? But more so as a form of art and service. I was in the pharmacy field for 16 years and we focused on customer service. But that's when the first thought of becoming an investor kind of sparked in me. Was back then. I just didn't know, like I said, to what extent that was. So now fast forward into 2018, it was a huge year just because I left my job as a pharmacy technician that I had for 16 years. And at the time, that's all I knew, right? There was a brief stint that I had with Tesla for a short while that I left the pharmacy and then eventually coming back. But I felt like I was just chasing something bigger, even coming back to pharmacy after that short Tesla stint. So in 2019, everything shifted. It was a big year. I got accepted into Texas State for civil engineering, got married to my best friend, my fiance at the time, and we bought our first home. Without a realtor, yeah, it was bold. And looking back, we made it through, but I also made every rookie mistake you can think of. We didn't do our research. There was a lot to it, right? But that's when the real learning started for us. So don't do without a realtor, trust me. But anyway, that experience just planted a seed that if I could help others not feel so overwhelmed and in the dark, I'm just a student of life itself. So I just wanted to make sure that I could bring that information to others, right? So anyways, tying it all together, right? Between school, work, and married life, those years taught me resilience. And I graduated in 2023 with my civil engineering degree. And at the same time, earlier that year, actually 2 months prior, we had just purchased our first investment property. This time we used a realtor, but truthfully, we knew exactly what we wanted at this point. Going through the first process with our first home in 2019, we learned so much. Our agent was awesome, I support him now, and he was there for support, but we just felt ready. That's when, I realized that I could be that person for someone else too, that I could guide, educate, just truly bring value, right? That engineering mindset mixed with creativity that I have, maybe from the music side of things, detail-oriented, but also deeply empathetic to just people's stories. That's just who I am, right? I'm naturally just a giver. Sometimes I overshare. I've had people tell me that information that I have, that I should probably charge people, webinars, all that stuff. I don't like to gatekeep, man. I like to just share that with people. It comes back to you, right? That's just exactly how I feel. From 2021 to 2023, I interned and eventually signed on as a full-time graduate engineer when I graduated in 2023. I like the work, the structure, the problem solving, everything about it. There's something to be said, dressing a certain way kind of for the part, and having to reflect the type of work that you do, right? But there was just a relentlessness, I guess you can say, inside me that I was spending 8 to 10 hours a day behind a screen. And as someone who thrives on connection and creativity, I just kind of felt stuck. I knew I had more to give, and it wasn't just about me. It was about creating a life where I could be present, impactful, and intentional with my time and energy, especially now with three daughters and 3 dogs. Rest in peace to my pup, my oldest, Romo. But anyway, that's when the idea of finally pursuing real estate got serious for me. It was definitely a faith-based and truly a leap of faith to become a full-time realtor. So kind of fast forward, by September 30th of 2024, I officially became a licensed realtor. I was still doing engineering during the day, 9 to 5, real estate on the side. It was exhausting, but exciting. Of course, with the 3 girls, school, lunches, clothes, baths, bedtime, you name it. Hey, bring it on. I just kept praying for clarity, and eventually it came. And my wife and I, we talked about it, and we knew it was time for me to go all in. And I remember on that Friday that I walked into my boss's office and just gave him my notice and said, hey, appreciate everything you've done, but I'm resigning. And I remember at the time he asked, hey, what's your plan B? But deep down inside, I already knew what I wanted, right? So it was just like, yeah, there is no plan B, because this is my plan A. But to be honest, right, it was scary, there's that uncertainty or the unknown, like, hey, I need to bring, food on the table for my family. But it was scary, but I haven't looked back, and I've been a full-time realtor since, I would say, May 2025, right, this year, and I just haven't felt this aligned in a long time. I feel like in some way I'm working harder, but I've also gained a lot of time with my family, and that's just what's been more important to me. Stress levels have just, come down big time, and I truly enjoy what I do now, so it's fun, right? I get to, and a bonus, my wife is also a full-time realtor, so she also quit her 9 to 5. We'll get into that. We have another pretty big surprise coming with that, but I won't dive into that. But anyway, kind of bringing you back to when things started to click for me, when I knew I wanted to be a realtor. I had this, there was this coffee shop moment that just changed everything for me, where I was already studying for the exam. I was going to be taking it on that Friday, and I think this was a Wednesday. And so that moment that really kicked it all off, I was sitting at radio, coffee, and beer here in Montopolis, studying for that exam, and I saw two guys walking in, and two gentlemen walking in, and right away I could tell one was a realtor. He was just sharp, but he just had that confidence. And then the other guy, he kind of had his hat clean cut, just looked the part. And I was like, man, this guy's either like a developer or an investor. Those were my thoughts, and sure enough, that's exactly what it was, right? But I sat a couple tables away, and I picked up on a couple words, keywords that I heard. I heard like units, offers, investing, property, multifamily, blah, blah, blah. I was just like, hey, funny enough, I'm actually studying for this. So I was absolutely, purposefully eavesdropping. And normally I wouldn't say anything, right? But something told me to just jump right in. I leaned over and introduced myself and told them, I was taking the exam in two days. And that moment of boldness, for me, it just led to a connection that eventually helped me land at Keller Williams. So after some time at KW, I made another leap and joined. Well, when I joined, let me come back to it. Right when I joined Keller Williams, I still had my 9 to 5, and I was doing this part time up until, like I just said not too long ago, right, where I made that a full time jump, and I joined another team. Or I joined a team, right, because I was a solo agent before, but then I joined a team because I'd already established a lot of the baseline in what being a solo agent was. I had to learn a lot, by myself. There was support, but it's just totally different than being part of a team. So when I left my 9 to 5 and and jumped into this full time, I knew I needed some structure that was going to keep me accountable for what I needed. So that's when I joined a great team, and I was with them for a short stint. But then I just realized that something about that structure for me just was not what I needed. And I was also working, with my wife, and I needed to just separate from that, where for me, just a lot of that comfort of, I had my wife at home, I had her at work, and I love working with her, but there was just still something that I needed to separate from that. So it was nothing the team did, nothing my wife did. It was just solely a decision that I needed to make for myself in order to hold myself fully accountable, and then to really pursue this the way I wanted to, kind of lighten this fire under my ass. Otherwise, I just got too comfortable knowing that my wife was there, and this awesome team had great support. So like I said, no fault of anybody, but just myself, right? And then at that point, it was this big coming full circle moment where I ended up joining Realty of America, which I'm part of now. But kind of the full circle moment, what's crazy about that is months, probably more than a year prior, to even being a realtor, I'd considered real estate, but it wasn't, serious. And I'd reached out to two people at ROA about investing, and I don't even know if ROA was around at that time, to be honest. I think this was just more from an investor side of things. So fast forward, those same two people brought me into the brokerage, and it was like this full circle moment, which was just awesome. And and a lot of brokerages, I'm sure they do this, but ROA just gives me that freedom, that autonomy to build my brand my way, in my time, with people who actually believe in long-term community and the impact of it. For me, it just felt right. The timing was right. Like I said, coming full circle with these two individuals that had kind of already piqued my interest before. So at that point, I just really thought, hey, this is bigger than real estate, right? Everything I've done, being a pharmacy tech, a musician full-time, a touring musician at that, studying engineering, producing music, doing live sound, you name it. It all taught me how to listen, build and serve, but in a different way, not just a typical way of just listening to things or just like, oh, I'm hearing you, I'm listening. No, like I just took that a step further. But anyway, whether, like I said, I'm behind a studio board or I'm helping a family find a home, I bring my whole self to the table. I don't just help people buy or sell. I love to get into the investment side of things, help build wealth, house hacking, you name it. Cost segregation as I'm learning more and more about this, 1031 exchanges. Anyways, I help people dream, move forward, and feel supported every step of the way, because that is something that I always yearned for when I was, probably, in their steps, right, previously. And I don't say clients, I refer to them as partners, unless I'm referring to them as a whole, then sure, my clientele, but even then it's partners, because that's just how I work, right? I work with others. It's never like, hey, you're my client. It's like, no, hey, this is a mutual partnership. This is a business. This is a business that we're, partaking in, right? So if you're just starting your journey, or if you're even thinking about what's next, if you're considering becoming a realtor, if you want to get into investing, if you're a first-time home buyer, if you're wanting to list, if you just wanted to talk shop, I just hope my story shows you that it's never too late to pivot, grow, and follow what lights you up. So for me, it was just awesome. I'm 41 now, crazy, and feeling like I have had a second chance at a first chance in the career now, that where I'm dictating what happens, when it happens, the way I want it, because like Frankie said, man, hey, my way, right? And it's just never too late. That's the whole thing, right? So if you ever need someone to guide you in that process, whether in real estate or just a fellow dreamer like myself, I'm here. Herman the Realtor at your service. Herm out.